Hey, Spikes me or Dealmos Alliance. It's me, Spikes1000 here, coming to another video. This video. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone. And yes, I know this is a Thanksgiving special, and it's nothing related to do with Thanksgiving. I just decided to come up with an idea, and I wanted to test the grounds for a end of school year project for a video I want to work on. Well, I am doing the sketches. I just want to see how well the video might do. So, this is experimental. And this video is, like the title suggests, the title is OP Anime MC Battle Royale. Mecha Battle Royale, sorry. In other words, the full title is Overpowered Anime Main Character Mecha Battle Royale. Mecha Battle Royale bit comes from a game I've played a few times called Super Mech Champions. Like the narrator states, I based this character off of Popcross Studios character. I forget her name, but she was the game show host practically. And I'm thinking along the same lines, but she has more extravagant things. And there's always a bright white light in a circle when they are summoned. And it's always a message on the long lines of, "You have been chosen for a game," or whatever. But without further ado, let's roll intro and let's get into this video, and let's go. Like and subscribe if you enjoy this video. Welcome all overseas. This is another game I'm making. This is a game full of very powerful, in other words, they're pretty much overpowered, OP Anime MC Mecha Battle Royale based off the game Super Mech Champions. We have multiple contestants, 16 in total, while the rest are AI pilots. Each of these 16 combatants have their own personal mechs, and each of them don't have access to a good chunk of their powers. Base powers is all they have access to. Let's start, shall we? Let's start spectating the match. First up is Goku. His mech is something I designed. Well, I designed all of them, but his mech is called Saiyan. Type is assault, and continuous. And fair warning, some of these are type of all. I mean, they are all types because just how powerful and strong the actual character is. Goku realized that he was in a match right when he was training. He was trying to figure out where he was, but as soon as he heard that voice come on the screen, and him hearing that they're overpowered and strong, he got ready for a good fight. He tried charging up, but due to him being an idiot, he didn't realize that he couldn't have access to his full power. He was able to go up to Super Saiyan, well, nothing. He just had his ki blast. Once he landed down, he started running around. He was looking for parts or something. He didn't know what he was doing. But he soon figured it out. He picked up a gun, but then realized, after shooting it at some targets, he realized that he had his ki blast. Still had his powers of ki. So instead he charged up those attacks, and they turned out to be more effective than any other weapon he has. And after a little bit of fighting, he managed to get some more points and got his level ranking up to level 1. His strength was increased, and so was his ki blast. He still didn't have access to all of his powers, but he soon later managed to get access to his mech. He realized it could go up to the golden hair Saiyan, so he managed to jump around, aiming for more and more better parts, and more loot boxes. And whenever he saw an opponent, he always ran in and attacked. He took a lot of heavy amounts of damage, but due to his Saiyan bits, his mech was able to regenerate. He kept blasting and flying around, but he soon found that he had limited time in the air. So he kept going up in more and more higher ground. Soon he realized he wasn't able to find that many very strong opponents. So he just started aiming for them and their mechs. Originally he was just attacking people just running around. But he soon found there were a few robots guarding some very good loot boxes, and decided to go and get one. When he got there, 3 rings appeared around him, and each one lit up. One on the outside, one in the middle, and one right around the chest. Then 3 robots came down from a beam, from 3 individual beams. One was a very weird 4-legged spider-like robot that could launch rockets out of its back. And the other 2 were basically just bipedal, wheel-legged robots that just drove around. He managed to dodge most of their attacks, getting hit by a few heavy hits from the rockets, but he soon managed to get rid of them. And right before he was about to open the box, the final things he heard before being eliminated from the game were Beelzebub! Alright, let's go on. Since Goku just got eliminated from... Oh, that's interesting. It appears that a slime has gotten into the game. And it's a very powerful one. I don't remember. He's one of the 16, but I don't remember the guy's name. But let's get to the next one, shall we? This guy is far weaker than Goku. He's by far one of the weakest on this game show. His name is Kito. His mech is Black Swordsman. His type is Hit and Run plus Continuous. Kito was right in the middle of going on a date with Asuna when he felt something weird going on. He was soon lifted into the air in a beam of light. He managed to, find himself in a pre-game video game lobby. Reason being is because he played a lot of MMORPGs. But from his time in Gun Gale Online, he realized it was a Battle Royale game. He walked around and saw some players that moved around like AI, and due to a few things he has on his gaming console, he managed to somehow get it over into the game, realizing that these were AI, but he soon realized there were 15 other people, but they were different. They were something like people, but he soon realized that they weren't fully people. Minutes later, he disappeared, blacked out, and then found himself in a weird mech, flying through the air. When he pressed a button, he was ejected and flew down to the ground. He released his parachutes because he somehow knew he had one, but instead of it being a parachute, it was a little gliding robot. He used that and fell down near something that looked oddly like City Hall. He went in and found a few people. He managed to find a gun. He picked it up and shot it a few times. He managed to get a few hits and eliminate the player. Turns out the player was an AI, just like he thought. He soon managed to run over after seeing they dropped a chest. He ran over and looted it. But he soon realized that he had his two swords. Very, very weaker versions, but still, he didn't have to use guns. He prefers swords. So he ran out with the two swords and some level 1 and 2 gear he found in the place. He does still have one gun just in case. He managed to get out and find someone nearby. He charged at them and used his sword, slashing and dashing, and, well, just thrusting at them. And within 5 hits, they were out of the game. He soon overheard, "Kito has the highest kill streak of 2 players in a row, and 5-10 seconds apart each other." He realized that was the voice he heard while he was being beamed up. It said, "Kito, you have been chosen to participate in a game." He then managed to run around more and more, finding more and more weaponry. He also managed to find stronger and stronger versions of his swords, eventually finding golden versions, which were by far the strongest he has. Still, not a whole lot more armor. He then came across a mech that was flying through the air. He dodged out of the way, but it looked like it had claws. It charged up an attack and blasted. He dodged and dodged and dodged. He swung a few attacks and managed to get some pretty heavy hits in, but he realized that they weren't doing a whole lot of damage to the opponent. So he ran and hid. He then realized he was able to have access to his own mech. He summoned it and he leapt in with it. He realized it had 2 blades on the back. He got excited and drew the blades. He realized they were just very similar to his own, but then the blades morphed and coated his mech's arms all the way down to the elbows. Now the swords were the mech. He realized it matched pretty much his color scheme for his SAO outfit, but he ignored that, charged in, gained more and more heavy hits in. Realizing the black blade did a pretty good amount of damage, but the blue one also did some ice damage, slowing down the target. The opponent then flew up and charged a blast, landing behind him and shot him through the head of the mech, eliminating him. Well, eliminating his mech. Kito then managed to fly down, but he didn't see the next attack coming. He saw someone leave the mech, charging up a blast and firing at him 5 more times. Then he was eliminated from the game. This next one is someone far, far very funny and very weird, but yet a psychopath who murdered hundreds of people while in an alternate universe after being reincarnated into that of a lolly's body. This is Tanya. Her mech is called, wasn't able to come up with a very creative name, so Tanya the Evil. One of the first mechs of the all type I've made. The reason being is because she is very strong and durable. And overall, just a all-around badass. Tanya was doing a training regimen whilst fighting in the training for more battles in the war. She was practicing her magic when she was beamed up after hearing, "Tanya, you have been chosen to participate in a game," in her mind. Time froze, and she was beamed up. She saw someone in black clothing that looked like old school uniform from her last life walking around. She realized that he didn't have any magic, which was weird. But she soon realized some other people did have magic and others didn't. she shrugged it off and looked around, realizing she was in something like a video game from her last life. She didn't have a lot of experience playing it, and her newer life memories were more and more taken over. But she still had a few good memories. When she was dropped into the game, she managed to find some of her favorite weapons. She found 2 assault rifles and something that looks like a pistol. She shot it at the first opponent she found, and found that she could change the settings from a frost blast to a snowball. She realized that this could freeze the enemy, but she then used it to kill the enemy she encountered. But when she looted the body, she found better weaponry. She picked up something that resembled a bazooka. And she was right. The next opponent she found was just getting into a mech. She shot a few times and eventually managed to get a hold of the bazooka. And when she fired it, she realized that it did far, far more damage because it's a heavy-hitting weapon. She shot a few more times and eventually managed to destroy the mech. She went in for a full attack, shooting more and more and more with her machine guns. She also managed to get the rocket launcher reloaded and shot a few more times, and then the mech was gone. She saw it disappear in something that looks like this very similar beam that summoned her into this world. She then looked around and saw someone flying down towards her. She started to run away, so that way she could get some upper advantage, but she realized that she had something that resembled a mechanized version of her, somewhat. She clicked on the glowing icon in front of her. Then a mech started to build its way up around her. Not a very tall one, but maybe 15 feet tall. One arm resembled that of one of her favorite guns while fighting in the war. She flew up into the air and shot a few times, and she managed to eventually defeat the opponent. She saw that this mech was relatively fast, but it was not able to get into very small holes. It was also able to shoot giant burst attacks. She desummoned it after someone ran into a building and started to follow in after them. She had a crazy glint in her eye. Right as she turned the corner and shot a few times. She managed to eliminate the opponent, but she realized there were 2 more. Someone with blue hair was running away from someone that had some dark blue hair and was far taller. She was about to run over and attack them when another opponent caught her eye, and she shot at him. He was different. He appeared to be bald. He didn't have any weapons, but he did have some armor, level 1 armor. She was wearing nearly all level 3 with a level 2 helmet. She shot at him thinking he'll be an easy target to destroy. But he ran over to her with blinding speeds, punched her. She was eliminated from the game. It just appears that Tanya the Evil, we just lost a connection to her. Escaped a body that just killed her. Give it up to the next person we're watching. Someone named Saitama. His mech is One Punch Mecha, or OPM. Type heavy armor and assault. I made the mistake of pretty much giving this thing equal powers to him. This guy's got stupid amounts of strength, but still not enough to kill the likes of me. Saitama was training with Genos, being just an overall bored person and semi-depressed. He was actually having a little bit more fun training with Genos, but he was thinking about what to have for dinner. He was thinking, I need to get some dinner. I want some meat. He managed to go to a store and, after training with Genos, and find some premium meat on sale. But right before he grabbed it, time stopped and a beam shot down right in a split second before he realized what was going on. And he realized a sound. Saitama, you have been chosen to participate in a Mecha game. He had some experience playing video games while he was younger, and a few Mecha games. But when he dropped down into the pre-game lobby, he realized that most people had guns, and some very similar bodies. Realizing that these people are not going to give me a good fight. He then realized that there were 15 other people that had some very different clothing. Some resembled school uniforms, others resembled armor, and one even resembled a little girl who looked a lot, reminded him of reminded him of Terrible Tornado. He was about to walk over and say, "Are you lost, little girl?" to her. Then he was summoned into the game. He dropped down, looking around, just wandering around, just aimlessly. Managed to bump into a crate, lifted it open, and found weaponry. He dropped all the weapons after an earlier encounter where he encountered an enemy wearing no armor but having a very powerful weapon. The person charged the weapon at him and shot him at him. Took out 5% of his health. The person realized this and started to run. He managed to run over and managed to hit them somehow. But he realized that the hit did full damage. He thought that his punches were going to be normal because, well, he lifted that up and the lid of the chest didn't really break. But he soon realized that his punches were full power and he got on two knees and said, "No!" He got back up and started walking around, eventually coming back to that chest. He lifted up the lid and grabbed the armor. Managed to find some more pieces of level 1 armor just laying around in chests. He managed to kill a few more opponents after hearing, "Kito has got the kill count of 2 people in a row, and about 5 to 10 seconds apart from each other." He was impressed, wanting to fight this Kito person, because 2 kills in 5 to 6 seconds, that was fast. Still not as fast as him, but still pretty freaking fast. He started to run around looking for more opponents, and hopefully looking for a way out of this place. He eventually found a way out. That's what he thought. He actually found the exit to a little place. While walking in, he saw the exact same sight Tanya saw earlier. A long-haired blue-haired person was running away from someone with hair darker blue and far taller, more masculine. He was about to charge at them to see what they were going on. Then he realized Tanya was nearby. He was like, "Oh, it's that little girl I saw earlier." He was going to walk over and ask, "Look, you lost your way, little girl?" But she turned around, saw him, and started shooting at him. He then jumped and released a punch, knocking her out instantly. He then went back outside and managed to find he was able to summon a mech. And when he did, it was far stronger than his base form. because he had an early encounter with someone else with that access to a mech already. He punched the mech, and it didn't do much damage. But when he punches a mech and while he's in his mech, the mech was instantly destroyed. But he soon found his match with that blue-haired masculine person he saw earlier. He was about to ask who he is, but he was evaporated into flames. And the last thing he heard was, "Saitama has been eliminated from the games." The next person we're going to be spectating is Izuku Midoriya. And by far the second weakest person next to, Kito in this match. Izuku Midoriya was, training to finally destroy and kill AFO and Shigaraki. He was patrolling the cities after he saved a kid from Muscular and utterly mopping the floor with Muscular via the new quirks he has. And this was quite a bit after that, and he had already unlocked Jin. He then realized time has frozen around him because the birds in the air and the rumble has stopped. He looked around and heard a voice in the sky saying, "Izuku Midoriya, Manga version, you have been chosen for a Mecha game." He was then about to reply with "I don't agree." But then he beamed up. He looked around when he awoke, finding himself in something that resembled a pre-game lobby. He realized he still had his costume on, kept it tucked away just in case this was an attack by a villain. A few minutes later, the game started. He realized that soon after, he was in something that resembled like a different universe. Just a little game for some creatures. After hearing something like, "The games are gonna start," he started running around and he managed to find some opponents. He ran over and away thinking they were his friends. But he realized that they weren't, and they were following him. They had guns in their hand, and they were about to aim and shoot at him. He stopped and turned around, releasing Blackwood from his arms, and swinging at them. And he threw them into a building. He charged at one for all, and leapt at them. He punched them, and they just disappeared. And a balloon popped out of their back and flew up into the sky. He looked down in the chest, opened it up, and realized they had left behind something that looked like digital armor. He put it on, and it automatically coated over his chest, pretty much covering the entire thing. Realizing that these opponents weren't friendly, he attacked more and more of them. He then managed to get away and pretty much hide and wait for an ambush. He saw someone that looked like a little girl with blue hair with a trench coat on, running away and turning around a few times, unleashing her sword, charging and then charging at an opponent and utterly coating them in black flames. Then they were eliminated. She leaped back with just nothing. She left the chest alone. She then ran more and farther away. He peered out of the door, looked around for no one, because she was giving off an aura that said that she was far stronger than anyone he could take on. reasonably and win. He walked out, opened the chest, and managed to find some level 3 armor. Simple chest plate. He put it on, and as soon as he did, the mech resembled his own costume. The only main difference was each shoulder had 3 spikes, and when he turned around aiming for a smaller target, he shot one, and when he shot it, something that resembled Black Whip leapt from it, which snaked through the air and charged at the person, piercing the ground near them, but not hitting them. But the shockwave flew them into a building, knocking them half health down. The person got up and summoned their own mech. He then charged one for all and used Air Force attacks. He then used Tall Jin, breaking the ground underneath him. Shockwave from that damaged the mech more. He leapt up into the air. He had small boosters on his side. He fired them, charging at them, charging one for all into his body. He then charged down and punched straight through the mech. He then turned around, shot at the person a few times with Air Force, and eventually they were destroyed. He then continued to walk around more and more. He later heard that Tanya the Evil has been eliminated by Saitama. He was curious about that, so he went to investigate. He managed to find that one punch person. He managed to find someone that resembled Saitama from what he managed to hear from it. The intercom also stated, "Be on the lookout for someone wearing a lot of yellow and bald, with a very simple face." He saw him, but he was in a mech that resembled him. He then saw someone charging behind him and coat him in flames. Izuku summoned his own mech, ran for a fight, but then directly after that, the person turned towards him and fired the same flames at him, eliminating Izuku Midoriya from the games. Alright everyone, Izuku Midoriya has been eliminated from the games. We are actually down by 5. The next person we're going to be spectating is someone named Eins Ongone, who's a skeletal undead from the universe of, what was it called? Oh yeah, Overlord. This guy is immensely powerful for a skeleton, surprisingly. Eins Ongone was giving orders to his subordinates, trying to keep away from, and he was trying to evade Albedo all the time. Eventually, he was cornered by her in the throne room. She was powerful, but not even close as powerful as him. Earlier, before he got teleported to this world, he made the mistake of changing her programming to where she was obsessed with him. He soon realized that he regretted it. But before she could talk to him, she froze. He tried unfreezing time, but he realized that the magic or whatever that was being used to stop time was far, far more powerful than his. He was confused because he had magic that was the strongest in this world, or so he thought. He then heard a voice saying, "Eins Ongone, or someone has been reincarnated into this world as Eins Ongone. You have been chosen to participate in a Mecha Battle Royale video game. But in reality, it's just a Battle Royale game for you." He then just got summoned in. He found himself in a pre-game lobby. Looking around, he saw a countdown on his big screen, resembling 10 more minutes to game start. He looked around, saw 15 other people that were wearing different clothing from others. Others had very similar body types. He matter of fact saw a multiple of one person. He started to walk over to one person with long blue hair, and said, what is this place? She turned around and said, oh, and I said, oh, you're a girl. The person said, I'm a dude. I was like, oh, do you know what this place is? He said, the person he was talking to, with the blue hair, said, I don't know, this is weird. But then they heard a voice say, let the game begin. They were then teleported into the match. When he leapt out of his own personal flying vehicle mech, he jumped down, and when he landed, he found that he was wearing his cloak still. He started to look around because he was curious about a few things. While walking around, he saw there were some opponents nearby. He tried staying away, but he then realized they were fighting each other. He ran inside the nearest building to him, which, when he turned the corner inside, he found there was a chest. He opened the chest, and he took out the armor. Putting on, it was a level 3 helmet with a level 2 chest plate. He took it, and it morphed around him, giving him his appearance that resembled the knight armor he wore for some time. He then ran off after picking up a laser. He realized it had to be charged. When he charged it, he shot it. It knocked someone down by half health. That was at half charge. He charged it full way and just utterly annihilated the next person after shooting the last person one more time. He then continued to do this a few more times, and that's how he managed to eventually get to his mech. When he summoned it, he looked like a lot like his cloak he was wearing. But it actually had exposed legs, and the shoulder blades resembled the bones he was wearing. But one arm resembled the staff with 3 crystals on it. He soon turned around after hearing a mecha noise, a noise that resembled a mech being summoned. He turned around and saw someone in a very interesting mech. He realized it reminded him of that person he saw earlier. But the person turned to him and then looked back. If the mech eyes could widen, they would have. The mech was immediately desummoned, and then the person ran into a ability to hide. Then he looked around and saw why the person was in shock. Someone in a mech with a wheelie colored 2 horns, wielding a sword in one gun arm. He shot at the person a few times. One was a decay ray, one was a fire, and one was ice. All 3 hit, but they didn't do much damage. Maybe knocking out 10% health. The person was impressed. Turned, aimed the gun, shot at him. Completely eviscerated his mech right through. When he flew out, the person was already jumped down. They drew the sword from their back, spun and launched a slash. A dark red slash rolled toward him. He tried to run, but it slashed right through him And the last thing he heard before being turned to a spectator was, Eins Ongone has been eliminated from the game. Okay, the next person we're gonna go spectate is someone known as Jin Woo. Oh, I forgot I made a mistake of bringing a god. Anyways, Mecha Shadow Monarch, which is one of his titles. Type is all. He has the ability to summon other robots to do his bidding, but I have nerfed them quite a bit. Still doesn't mean he can't transform giant numbers. Let's just see how he's doing so far in this lovely game of mine. And for the record, no one is dying. When they're eliminated from the game, they are teleported back to their world. They still have all the memories, but they're not allowed to say anything about it. Unless they're another overseer like me. Now, overseers, let's get back to the show. Jin Woo was, on a date with his girlfriend, with the most rank hunter. He was wandering around. They were wandering around. Every now and again, getting swarmed by more and more reporters trying to get a scoop on their dating, on their personal life. But they just ignored them. Matter of fact, Sung actually summoned Igris and told him, keep these people away from us, please. And Igris, followed the command to the letter. Whenever someone was nearby that was a reporter, he leapt from the shadows and told them, stay away. Eventually, their date was coming to an end. So, they were heading back home. Then Sung heard a voice, and then time slowed to a crawl, then to a complete stop. He heard the voice was faint at first, but eventually he managed to make out the voice. Jin Woo, once you hear this message clearly, you will be teleported and you have been chosen to participate in a game. When he managed to actually hear it clearly, he was indeed teleported to a game. He realized it resembled when he woke up, resembled that of multiple others were thinking. This looked like a pre-game lobby. Looking around, he saw multiple people that looked very similar to one another. But he also saw 15 others, including himself, in different groups just talking amongst themselves, talking about their lives, and it looked like they were seeing who were enemies, who were allies, and who were a good choice to attack. But he also saw some people not doing anything, just waiting for the game to start. Sung decided to go over and start talking. He secretly summoned Igris. He asked him, do you know anything about this place? He said, no, sir. No, my liege, I don't know anything. This area appears to be a different universe, though. The energies are different. He said, thank you, Igris. Igris appeared to be a lot weaker than usual. Song waited a few minutes after deciding not to talk. And when he was in the game, the first thing he found, he realized he had 2 guns in his hand. He didn't really like them, but he couldn't throw them away somehow. Whenever he tried, they immediately came back to his hand. So he got tired of trying and started walking around. He managed to find a shield and a shotgun. He shrugged and started running around. Eventually, he came across an opponent with an ion cannon that shot at him. He brought the shield up and blocked the attack. He shot a few times. He then spun the gun around, reloading it. Shot 2 more times, and the player was eliminated. Realizing they were AIs, while the other 15 were actual players, he continued to play the game. But just for a bit. He eventually managed to get enough materials to where he could summon his own weapon, his own mech. Because he saw a bunch of other people summoning their own mechs. 3 were around him. It appears that they had formed a loose alliance with one another. But one single shot could end the alliance. Sung summoned his mech. He leapt up into the air, and the mech engulfed around him. One arm was a giant sword. The other was something that resembled the ion cannon. He turned around, slashed the sword, releasing a wave of dark energy directly at an opponent. The shadows around them leapt forward, striking them, hitting them along with the slash. But he slashed 5 more times. They were paralyzed down for a few seconds. He shot the ion cannon at one, reducing them by near death on their mech. The 2 people decide to abandon ship and jump out. One decided to whip out a bazooka, shoot him. Song saw this coming, moved out of the way, and the missile soared right past him, and the missile struck the final mech that Song had forgot about. The person in the mech thought it was deliberate, changed their mech from shotgun form to rocket form, firing the rocket at the other 2. The third person saw this happening and started shooting at them both. Sung then leapt up into the air, summoned 5 smaller shadows that were about the size of Nova. They completely decimated the others. But then, as soon as Sung started walking away, he heard someone behind him. He heard a voice, turned around and saw something that had light blue horns that looked like hair. And the last thing he heard was, "Beelzebub!" Bloody slime, he's constantly destroying and beating other people and other players. I'm gonna have to figure out a way to get rid of this guy and out of this match as soon as bloody possible. Oh, am I online? Oh, well, sorry, overseers. It appears that bloody slime has destroyed another contestant. The guy's game is very good. Almost as if he can see what I'm doing. Anyways, the next person we're going to be going over is Issei from the universe of Highschool DxD. His type is heavy armor and assault. Although it's a very fast mech, it's weird because it's actually relatively heavy. Issei was on a date with Riaz. After defeating Loki, he managed to get some time off and go hang out with Riaz. To each their minds, it was practically a date with each other. They had some alone time, but Riaz turned to Issei and said, "Something's off about today." He said, "Really?" And she said, "Yeah." Time slowed to a crawl, and he heard a voice saying, "Issei, you have been chosen to participate in a game." He then had white light envelop him, and everything went dark around him. When he awoke, he found himself in the middle of a baseball field with people in other groups, just waiting for something to start. He got up, walked to the nearest person, and asked, "What is going on?" When he looked up, he saw the person just staring blankly at him. 2 guns at the side. He tried summoning Drake, but it wouldn't work. He went and ran away. He looked around, saw most people looked the same, except for a few groups of multiple people that looked like they were different. Some were wearing armor, some were wearing just regular clothes, some were wearing expensive clothes. One looked like a little girl who was in a war. Another one looked like a blue-haired chick talking to someone far taller and looking far physically stronger, but he could tell by their auras that the blue-haired girl was actually far more powerful than the dark blue-head dude. He waited for the game. He looked around and just looked at a timer. Said 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Let the game begin. And just like that, a game did begin. Next thing he knew, he found himself in a mech flying through the air. He then decided to jump out of some tower, and when he flew down to the ground, first thing he decided to do was pilot himself directly into a building. And when he landed, he rolled into the building. And the first thing he saw was the chest. He lifted it up, and it revealed armor and weaponry. He grabbed the level 2 armor and level 1 pants. He put them on, and they immediately camouflaged themselves over his clothing. He then got up and grabbed an assault rifle nearby, realizing that he was able to summon Drake now, but only through his mind. He asked Drake, "Are there any opponents nearby?" Drake said, "Affirmative. They are about 2 to your left." He then brought up a map with red dots indicating 2 opponents to the left. One was further away than the other. He got the gun out, and he started running. He looked to his left down. Someone caught his eye in the corner. He looked down and saw that it looks like something like his balance breaker form. He decided to ignore it for the time being, but it was at 65%. He started running toward the opponents. He shot at them both, just eliminating them both. He then heard a ding and looked down to the side and realized the thing was a full charge. He pushed the button by reflex, and immediately his sacred gear, his boosted gear or sacred gear, summoned into his arm, and Drake said, "Now summoning Mech." But it didn't really sound like Drake. It was a more robotic, deeper voice. The Mech enveloped him, coming off the arm, building around him, and growing in size. The hands shifted into cannons. When he opened his eyes, he saw that he was pretty much the Mech. He turned around and Drake said, 5 opponents to your left." He turned and he was right. There were 5 opponents coming directly at him. They were in a little fight with one another, but 2 were both coming at him, evading attacks. He turned and shot a blast. The energy didn't come from the cannon. Matter of fact, it took the area around him, charged, and shard it. It was a beam of energy, of green energy that resembled Drake's core. He then started charging another one, after continuously blasting the other. He managed to knock down the 2 opponents that were coming at him, but he realized that the blue-haired girl was in that fight. She was dodging, weaving, and slashing at people with her sword, eliminating the other 2. She then ran over. And the next thing he knew, he was the first one to witness her summon into a mech. It was about as tall as him, but it drew its blade, dashing at him. Issei dodged and shot the energy at the 2 downed opponents, ending them from the game. But as soon as he turned to continue fighting the blue-haired girl, she turned to him and shot him point blank in the face with her gun. eliminating him from the game. Okay, so it appears that Issei was already eliminated. Okay, I hope you enjoyed that little part right there. Next person is Jin Mori, and oh no, I made the mistake of bringing him from God of Highschool, and he's the strongest person in that show. His type is continuous and assault. Jin Mori was training with his friends. Well, one was training with a sword, and he was training with his fists. He was practicing his kicking and going into his other two forms. He was also practicing with his monkey form. He summoned his pole, expanding the size, moving around like a bow staff, trying to get the rhythm just right, and using his kicks and using the pole as a stand to spin around on, something like a stripper, but for offensive capabilities and also for defense. He managed to finally nail a move. Then time stopped. He heard a voice saying, "Jin Mori, you have been chosen for a game." Light, blinding white light, shined around him, circling him, shooting up into the air, and in a blink, he was out like a light. He was gone, but when he awoke, he found himself in the middle of two other people looking down at him. One resembled that of someone in golden armor you could tell the person had a very big ego. So he did the first thing that came to mind. Kicked him right in the balls. The person doubled over in pain. The other person was someone that resembled a skeleton. He was a little further off, so he just turned away and waited for a little bit, seeing what was going on. Then the game began. He immediately blacked out, and then woke up in a mech. He couldn't really tell what the mech looked like, but when he jumped out, he flew down to the ground, just waiting for the right time. As soon as he got close enough, he summoned his bow staff. He summoned his staff, expanding the size, length, down, and he managed to pummel into the ground. Right before then, though, a small little person, another player, an AI, flew down to the ground. They looked up and around, about to run off to go for a chest. Then they saw a shadow on the ground. They looked up. And that's the first and last thing they saw for the match. Was Mori Jin coming down with a staff extended. Jin hit the person square in the face, crushing him instantly. They disappeared with a balloon and flew into the air. He heard a voice saying, "Jin Mori has gotten the first kill of the game." He wasn't very happy about it, but he realized that some part of him was telling they're not real people, they're someone else. So he started running around, and he turned and looked and saw weaponry. He ran over and grabbed the armor. Unlike others, he was brought in with his bow staff and not two guns. He managed to summon his weaponry, and, well, he grabbed a level 1 armor, and with the level 2 chestplate and level 1 pants and helmet, he set off for more opponents to fight, and hopefully get out of this game sooner than he could. He then ran across that same person with the golden armor that looked like they were having trouble, but in reality they were surrounded by 5 players that were AI. He looked at amazement after he hit out to the side and saw him summon multiple weapons around him, shooting them all in different directions at the opponents, eliminating them. He then looked down to his corner and saw that the charger was fully done. He ran out, pushed the button, and when he did, a mech dropped down from the sky in front of him. He climbed in, looked up, and looked very similar to his Monkey King form. He looked at his opponent, drew his staff from the back, expanded the size to the size of a building, well, half the size. He then threw it at him. The person looked at it, his eyes widened, and he heard the impact. Okay, so let's go and see before that stat hit him in the face. Oh, Gilgamesh. Make Mecha of Babylon. Type all. Also forgot to mention, Jin Mori's mecha was called Monkey King, along with a few others. But anyways, without further ado, let the game and spectating begin. Gilgamesh was drinking his favorite wine from his favorite glass when he heard a voice saying, "Weird, I can't stop time around you." He was like, "My ego transcends time and space." He then summoned his personal weapon, drew it, but couldn't see. He then heard another voice saying, "Ah, there we are." Time froze and the weapon disappeared. He was surprised and shocked when that happened. He looked around and he heard the voice again. "Gilgamesh, you have been chosen for a game." He said, "I'm not in a mood to play any games." But she said, "You have no choice pretty much." He then blacked out and disappeared in blinding white light. He then woke himself up, and soon after, another person appeared. The person was wearing some very interesting clothing. It appeared to be a lot more, looked like a simple pair of pants, shirt. That was pretty much it. The guy got up and he looked directly at him. The guy immediately turned and walked away, but for a split second he saw two crosses on his eyes. You could tell this guy was very powerful. He then immediately started to wait for a game, for whatever was going to start. His ego was getting more and more annoyed. And finally, he heard the voice saying, "Let the game begin." Just then, he realized he was in his jet. He leapt down from it, summoning his armor, realizing it was only level 1. His pride got the best of him. He leapt down and ran over to the first thing he saw, which was a purple chest. He lifted the lid, grabbed the first thing he saw, which was a laser, hoisted it up, and ready for a fight. He summoned a few swords around him and ran off first opponent. He desummoned the weapons while running. He turned around, looked. He saw his opponent. They were a little far off, so he got down, aimed the gun, charged, and fired, knocking them out. He then summoned 5 portals, each one with a weapon drawn through. He said, "Fire," and they each fired at them. They hit their target square in each limb. The person they immediately died. A balloon spat from their back and lifted them into the air. One sword was was still stuck directly in the middle of their head. He found it very weird. He then ran over and grabbed level 3 armor, a level 3 chest plate from the person, which explained how they survived the blast. He then started running more and more, taking out more opponents, either with his blades that he was firing or with the laser. He eventually picked up a cryo pistol at the town hall. Examined it and looked around, seeing a little girl that looked like a little girl running away. He ignored it, thinking that she was too much of a waste of his time, and he ran into the city. While running through, he came across an intersection, and each way came one person, and another person was on top of a building, looking down at him. They then jumped down, and they flew down to the ground. He looked around him, summoned his mech, which resembled his armor with an additional helmet. He then summoned 5 weapon portals around him. These were a whole lot bigger. He summoned his own personal blade, grabbed it. It didn't look like it, but it looked like a regular blade. He then shot the blades at each opponent, killing them instantly. He heard a voice saying to himself and everyone else, "Gilgamesh has a kill count of 5 immediately. That is bloody impressive." He then saw someone punch something that was invisible to him, but then a mech flew down from the sky. He saw the person draw a staff, expand to half the size of a building nearby, throw it at him. He looked up, and his eyes in the mech of him widened. He then immediately summoned 10 weapon portals around them, shooting them at once, and both Gilgamesh and Jin Mori were eliminated from the game. And the last thing they both heard, "Gilgamesh and Jin Mori have eliminated each other. That was an unforeseen circumstance. That is awesome. But let's get next to this next person, shall we?" The next person we're gonna be spectating is the son of a devil. Well, son of Satan. From the world of Blue Excorsist. Name is Rin Okumura. Mech is Devil Flayer. Type is a burst and assault. And it's actually modeled after the Mecha that's called Arthur. But not as much as usual. It's actually a very simpler version of Arthur. But anyways, let's spectate him, shall we? Rin Okumura was on a mission along with his brother and some of his classmates. Most notably, the monk kid, I forget his name. They were on a mission to get rid of a demon that was infecting a town. But they were underestimating what they needed to do. So Rin Okumura unsheathed his sword, but as soon as he did, time stopped and a circle of light started to close around him slowly. He then heard a voice say, right after the circle was closed, "Rin Okumura, son of Satan, you have been chosen to participate in a game." Rin was confused. Before he could say that he didn't want to, he blacked out. And when he woke up, he found himself in a weird place. The area he found himself in resembled that of a baseball stadium. He looked down, and there were multiple people just running around, standing and talking. The ones who were running around were some that looked just like the others. But he realized there was a small groups and some individuals that looked different. By different, they were wearing some clothes. He was wearing the clothes he just got out. He was wearing well out. He also somehow managed to get some shoes on, because the last thing he knew, he wasn't wearing any. But he looked around and realized those people didn't look like any of the others. He looked around and realized that those other people, the remaining 84, there was 100 people total, including him, were moving very robotically. They were able to move very fluently, but they were moving like robots. Like stopping, looking around, and continuing to run. But it was going very fast. You could realize the pattern of something more robotic. But that he pushed the thought to the back of his mind, because he then heard a voice stating, "The game will start in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Just then, another burst of light. They were all blacked out. He then woke up and found himself flying down to the ground. He thought he was going to get hit, but then suddenly his arm jerked up like it was grabbing onto something. He realized he couldn't find his katana. He realized, oh yeah, it's on his back. He moved, but for some reason he couldn't release his hand. He flew down to the ground and landed. After he landed, he ran to a building and unseated his sword. And when he unseated his katana, he willed his flames to ignite. They did, but they were somewhat faint. They weren't as powerful as they usually were. He examined his katana for any cracks or defects, because he didn't want another outburst, especially in a place he knew nothing about. Didn't find any. But he eventually found a chest with some armor. He picked up the armor and put it all on, camouflaging over his already clothes. Went out and found opponents. He realized that they were definitely AI. Slashing through them, he saw that they were definitely robots via the circuitry he found in them. He then started leaping and running from place to place, slashing through every opponent. And eventually, he came to one opponent that wasn't an AI. In fact, was someone that, just like him, summoned to this place. He then realized he could summon a mech. He summoned his mech, known as Devil Flare, jumped in, drew its katana, and ignited its flames. As soon as he did, flaming horns erupted from the head. He got ready for a fight. The person summoned their sight, grabbed on, leapt up, and spun around, pointing their gun directly at him. Alright, before we have this face-off, let's go over this next person. His opponent, Ren's opponent, is gonna be Kumoko. Kumoko's mech is something called Arachnia. Type is Assault and Continuous. Just one off from his, which is Burst and Assault. Let's see what she was up to, shall we? And let's enjoy this fight. Kumoko was just wandering around with her friend she'd finally been reunited with. She started to walk around and she drew her size for some training exercises she wanted to do. And as soon as she heard a voice say, Kumoko, you have been chosen to join in a game. And a blinding white light enveloped her, and she was out, cold, in another world. When she awoke, she found herself in another world. She remembered playing a game because during her time she played a game called Super Mech Champions. She saw that this was a pre-game lobby that looked exactly like it. She had run around, but when she looked up and around, she realized that this was definitely an altered version of Super Mech Champions, a real life version. But she realized that the skins were also kind of robotic. She looked up and saw someone with a tail flinging around. She realized that he was something. She started to run around, and after she soon saw him, she knew he was different. She could tell by his aura that he was not human, but not a demon either. He was more like a hybrid. She then drew her scythe and popped it down, leaned against it, and started to wait. She realized that she realized there were other people just like him and her from other worlds in this place for another game. She had played a lot of Super Mech Champions, so she knew how to win the game and win the match. But she, after being teleported into the game, she realized there were definitely other parts to it. One of those other parts were the fact that she still had her abilities. She summoned some poison and flung it at the first person she saw. Immediately, they started to lose points. They became paralyzed. And she then summoned her scythe and slashed them and dealt the final blow to them. And she soon saw, after defeating her first opponent, someone else running around. She saw that it was that same person because of his tail. He had unleashed a katana with blue flames erupting off of it. He was dodging and jumping and running from building to building, running in and running out. And when she went to investigate one, she found a chest. And she realized that he had been destroying all of the other opponents. She soon heard a voice say, Rin Okumura has taken the lead as MVP with a kill count of 10 so far. She turned and saw that Rin Okumura was gone. Soon after, she managed to get enough materials together so she can summon her mech. She realized that it really wasn't like a mech. She tried going through the menu, but it was like all other options were locked. So she pushed it, and she soon came across an opponent in a hot steel mech, another in a hurricane, and one in Arthur. She summoned her scythe and dashed at Arthur, slashing upwards and slashing downwards. She realized she had a gun on her. She readied the gun, and when she shot it, it was a glob of poison. The poison paralyzed Arthur. But then the hot steel mech, flew out to the side and started shooting at her. She leapt out of the way and slashed more to energy attacks at the Arthur mech, eventually eviscerating him. She then started to aim for both Hurricane and Hot Steel by getting on top of her, by grabbing onto her side and spinning around, shooting at both. Or Hot Steel, not being a big and bulky mech, wasn't able to move around easily, so he was an easy one to go. She then immediately started aiming for more and more of Hurricane. She leapt onto a top of the bridge behind her and started shooting rapidly and launched energy plate attacks from her scythe at the Hurricane Mech. She eventually managed to destroy all mechs. She then found all 3 opponents of the mech and shot them all to their elimination. She then turned around. She heard someone unseize the sword. She grabbed on her scythe, spun around, and faced directly at him with her gun facing towards him. Soon, Rin unseized his sword, and Kumoko readied her katana, readied her scythe and gun. She aimed it directly at him. She shot, and he slashed right through it and managed to burn away the poison. He then dashed in with the flare, flames burning from his feet, launching directly at her. He launched a fire wave of slash, and she shot both of her energy blade and her poison. Both hit each target. Both downed their mechs. They both unseized their weaponry and started to fight in a 1v1 battle without mechs. Both lost. Both were eliminated from one another. And the last thing they heard was Rin Okumura and Kumoko have actually defeated each other without mechs. Now that is something to behold. Now, the next person we're going to be spectating is someone named Shin Wolford. His mech is Master of None because his type is all. Let's go see how he's doing, shall we? As soon as she changed the channel, she saw that Shin was facing off against someone with a shield on one arm, a gun in the other, and a force field projected in front of him with a cable on him. Shin Wolford was, going on a date with his fiancée when he heard a unfamiliar voice saying, "Shin Wolford, you have been chosen to participate in a game. A battle royale, if you will." Time slowed to a crawl, then completely stopped. White light soon enveloped him, separating his hand from his girlfriend, from his fiancée's. And a white beam of light shot through him and made him black out. When he reawakened, he found himself in a courtyard resembling that of a baseball field he could remember from his last life. He tried summoning some magic to look around and see. When he did, it was very faint, but faint as in his powers had been somehow weakened. He looked around and realized there was something on the back of his head. He tried picking at it, but shocked him. Thought it was like electricity magic or something, but it felt more mechanical, like it was designed to dampen powers. He ran outside of the place he was in, and as soon as he got outside, he saw that there was more people like him. One was standing in the bleachers. Multiple were standing around, but there was only 15 others in total. He looked around and saw that the other 84 were very different. They were more in the same colors, and they looked like there were quite a few versions of each other. And he soon heard an announcement stating that the game would start in 5 seconds. And 5 seconds passed, and came and went, and he blacked out and found himself falling to the ground. he united his feet with his levitation boots, and he managed to safely glide down to the ground. He saw others were leaving blue streaks in the air, and he didn't leave anything behind, so he thought this would help him. He flew down to a, looks like an old abandoned construction site, and went in and started looking for things in general. He managed to find a flamethrower, which, when he touched, automatically enhanced its firing capacity to that of a purple grade or third grade weapon. But the flame immediately turned to blue. When he found a next opponent, he first thought they were laughing at him because it looked like its shoulders were bouncing, and he was right. He then lifted the guitar flamethrower, and when he pointed at them, he struck the chords, and a blue cannon of flames erupted forward and completely eviscerated the target. The target managed to dodge, but they were still seriously burned. They were down to 10 HP. They were shocked that a weapon so weak that it was quite simple to get early in game was so powerful. Shin then switched over to his regular guns and shot the target, downing them instantly. He then summoned his he then resummoned his guitar flamethrower, started running off and burning through targets one after another. Eventually coming to the first person he saw that came to this world unwillingly, just like him. And it was his first real human opponent he'd had to fight. That's where she left off the scene. Let's see who he's facing off against. Oh crap. It appears that Shin Wolford is facing off against the almighty, powerful, defense only, Sheild Hero, Naofumi Itawani. Let's see how this match ends, shall we? I'm pretty sure Shin's gonna win this one. Naofumi Itawani was hanging out with Raftalia and Philo. He was mulling over his new feelings for Raftalia after she saved his life. And they started getting closer, more than father and daughter. He decided to mull it over later, because soon he heard a voice saying, after time start, to crawl down to a stop. He then heard a voice say, "Naofumi Itawani, you have been chosen to participate in a game." His mind immediately flared to, oh no, not again. But as soon as the white light enveloped him and teleported him to another area, in another world, he looked around and saw it wasn't like anything he'd seen. He ran out and saw multiple people standing around. One in the bleachers, one staying nearby him, but he couldn't be seen. He looked like he was able to cast magic. Weird, he said to himself. And he then looked around more, seeing more and more people. He counted 16 in total, including himself. He then started to think, okay, what's going on around here? But the other 84 people, so when looking around, he saw that they were different. Different in the fact they looked like each other. But he decided to wait to see where this was going. He then heard an announcement saying, "The game will start in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And then they blacked out. When he came to, he was falling to the ground. He immediately summoned his shield, pointing it directly down, and he came down like a meteor. Surprisingly to him, he didn't break anything. The ground, that is. He would fine no matter what. He got up and started looking around for an opponent. First person he came across was a regular old person. It was one of those people that looked a lot like each other. He launched at them without a weapon. They laughed at this. They shot him. The bullets didn't even pierce him. They didn't injure him. They just bounced right off. He managed to get rid of them by simply making them run out of bullets. And he managed to summon his own pistols, which, due to his fact that he was more defense, were actually a lot weaker than usual. But he managed to down the player and get his assault rifle. He started charging through, using his invulnerable shield as a deterrent, bringing it up. He soon found a shield and shotgun. When he picked up the shield and shotgun, the shield immediately morphed into his own. And then the shotgun got a disability due to its fact of the shield. But this still helped. He started rushing forwards, finding more targets. Shotgun dealt a lot more damage than his pistols, but he eventually managed to summon a mech. This mech had a very powerful gun attached to him, which surprised Naofumi, but he saw the drawback of the mech was fast, but a lot slower than the other mechs he saw. And he was also near invulnerable. Only he as a player was invulnerable to most other players. He eventually came across his first human player. True human. He saw that it was that person who was staying there behind the gate, who couldn't really see him. When he saw him, he shot one of his force field generators up in front of him. Let out a sharp green light, but it slowly formed light green hue. Shin lifted up his guns. One was a blazer, one was a shot that could shoot multiple rounds at once. He unloaded both attacks, one after the other. 3 shots from one arm. After leaping into the air, pointing directly at him. Shot right there. And then the shot is beamed directly at Naofumi. Forceful tanked all the blows. He eventually recalled it. He then brought up his shield. And Mech knelt down into the alternate form. Pretty much just the shield expanded, grounded to the ground, and it became more armored. And the gun went on top, and now the head of Naofumi's mech lifted on top of it. It then shot its cannon directly at Shin. The blast hit Shin. It knocked him down to half health on his mech. He then immediately decided, this is going to be a little fun. He then dashed out to the side. Naofumi's mech gun recharged, and he then shot another blast off, destroying Shin's mech. But Shin's mech managed to shot off a full power attack. Surprisingly to Naofumi, it knocked his own mecha down by 10% health. Naofumi then leapt out of his own mech and drew his gun and just ran at Shin, shooting him. Before Shin could manage to get his flamethrower, he got hit 5 times. But due to his shields, he managed to tank the blows, but he was down half health. He then struck his guitar, and a cannon of flames erupted toward Naofumi. The flames didn't bother him, though. He then turned and just dealt the final few blows to Shin. He resummoned his mech, started walking off, and then he just came to a stop, and he was back. When he woke up, he was back in his own world, and he remembered the last things they said was Beelzebub. After Naofumi managed to defeat Shin Wolford, and he heard the final words before reappearing back in his world after deciding not to become a spectator for the rest of the match, he remembered he was talking to someone while waiting for the game to start. Talked to someone that looked like a girl with long blue hair and golden eyes. She introduced herself as Rimuru Tempest, but she also said that she was actually a dude. She was a slime. Well, he was a slime, just genderless, just prefers he pronoun. But before deciding to fully leave, he did spectate for a little bit. Naofumi came across someone that was constantly looking at her. He thought he was a creep. But it turns out his name was Aniz Voldigoad. In reality, he was the Demon King. Alright, everyone. It's the final 4 people. Yeah, I mean I said 5 because turns out there was one person that got caught in a storm just died. Anyway, let's enjoy this. The final 2 actual contestants are Rimuru Tempest, that blasted slime god I managed to accidentally leave in here, and Aniz Voldigoad. Let's see who wins the game, shall we? Aniz Voldigoad always spent his time while playing the game hunting Rimuru. Mainly because he was interested about him. Not in that sense. He remembered about his girlfriends at home. He was just interested in how a slime got so much power and just how powerful Rimuru was. While talking to Rimuru before the game, he told him that, I'm going to be testing you, so you better look out. Rimuru took this as a threat, and once he got in the game, Aniz dropped nearby. Rimuru spotted him and started to bolt, managing to pick up some level 3 armor along the way. Aniz Voldigoad was not that far behind him. In his pursuit, he came across a few people, one of them being another player, which he just utterly annihilated with a simple fire-based attack. Where it took place was under a bridge, and he was on top of a building, looking directly down at Rimuru's mech. Rimuru's mech started to bolt. He managed to shift out of it and run into a building right in front of another mech that was about to shoot at him. But as soon as that happened, he looked and saw that same person was soon just eviscerated from the flames. Aniz just really wanted to talk to Rimuru, but he wanted to test him in strength, just to get an idea how powerful he was. Rimuru had become a true demon lord not that long before being teleported into this world, which really surprised him. Aniz automatically knew Rimuru was powerful because of the aura he was letting off. Rimuru told him that he was just a simple slime, but Aniz knew better. They constantly were at odds, with him constantly hunting Rimuru, always managing to find him, even if they're halfway across the map from each other. It's like he was hunting him. He always had his sword at the ready, but he usually just had it laying on his arm. And when someone is about to attack, he just fires his cannon at them. No matter what he tries to do, no matter how many times he dodges and evades, he always is aiming for Rimuru. And pretty much Rimuru exclusively, just so they will be the final two to face off. And he managed to get that wish once he saw Rimuru finally take down the last two opponents. And a message for both of them to hear and all spectators to hear came aloud. Rimuru Tempest has finally defeated almost every single AI. He has a kill count of 20, the highest in the game ever recorded thus far. And now his opponent is Voldigoad, whose mech is known as Tyranny King. And the type of it is all. Let the battle of this finale commence, shall we? After Rimuru heard the announcement, he then soon heard Ano appearing behind him and saying, "Finally, just me and you now, Tempest." Cracking his knuckles, he looked up, and Rimuru drew his blade, getting ready for an attack. Ano did the same, but lifting his hand away with his sword off his arm, decharging his cannon. He said to Tempest, "Well, I was hoping to ask more about you. You're an interesting creature." Rimuru said, "Guy Crimson, a demon lord from my world," said the same thing. Right after that, Rimuru leapt towards him, slashing at him with black flames coating his blade. This managed to take Honest by surprise, but he managed to dodge. But a good part of him was hit by it, knocking his HP down by 12%. And due to the fact that there were barely any other, all the mech healers have been taken and used up, he couldn't heal his mech, so that was permanently down. But also to the fact that if he lost his mech, he could not resummon it. He then started to recharge his blaster. He aimed it right towards Rimuru and fired. He then spun around and sent a slash attack along with it. Rimuru dodged the first attack, but got hit by the second one, taking his own down by 1%. He said, "My attack did 12 on you. Yours did 1% on me. Reason being because I'm stronger." Ano said, "Well, I wasn't even fully charging that one." They both clashed again, trading blows and swords. Each attack met in the middle, exploding, and each one not landing a hit on the other. And we go back to the announcer and saying, "This is such a lovely fight. Oh, overseers, let's see how this ends, shall we?" Rimuru, remembering about the other mechs he devoured using Beelzebub, he ran away from the fight for a few seconds. He then imagined two of them. He imagined the Shielder from Naofumi Itawani, and he gained its near invulnerability. He then imagined the mech known as Saiyan from Goku. He then gained its enhanced abilities. He then started to charge his attack. He leapt back upwards, flying towards Anos, thrusting his weapon forward. He charged the blast, and instead of sticky steel threads from other enemies he's defeated, a cannon of ki shot forth and blasted directly into Anos' cannon, blowing it up. Anos was impressed. but his cannon was still there. His HP had dropped from 80% all the way down to 70%. Rimuru, due to all those explosions, had taken some more damage. His health had dropped from 99% to 90%. This wasn't going to be a much easier fight for Anos. Anos was expecting to lose, actually. He said, I knew you were a heavy hitter. He then leapt forth and managed to get 5 more attacks in. And 5 of both his cannon and his energy blade. That combined did another 20% of damage to Rimuru Tempest Mech, bringing him down to 60%, a 10% difference between them. Rimuru said, I'm surprised. I'm guessing that was a full charge attack. Ano said, yep. Rimuru said, well, sorry to break it to you, but my world, I'm the strongest. Ano said, I know, and you're a diplomat, correct? Rimuru said, yep. Charging another attack, but instead of the top cannon, it was a lower cannon, a flamethrower. He blew the fire directly towards Anos. Anos, thinking it was just a weak flame, shot it with his own, but instead of it just being dispersed, the black flames ate it up and gained more strength and momentum. This surprised Anos, and it flew directly into his cannon, completely blowing it up. This damaged Anos' mech very badly, bringing him down to 40% health. Rimuru, seeing his opportunity, said, in my world, we have skills. Mine are now, instead of unique, ultimate. And one of them is Beelzebub. He then devoured Anos and won the competition. Okay, overseers. As you can see, that bloody slime I accidentally let in was a god. That's the reason why he managed to get in. I'm surprised I was able to weaken him to such a state. And his powers is that akin to a god from other worlds. But by most counterparts, he is still a true dragon in his world. But he only didn't say anything. And now everyone should be back to their home dimensions for now. But let's see what's the next game I am going to make for y'all overseers to see. And that's all for today. Goodbye. Well, I hope you enjoyed today's video, because that's all the time I got for today. Until next time, subscribe today to join this Bikers Army or the Monster Alliance. Goodbye and peace out, everyone, and I hope you have a fantastic Thanksgiving holiday. Also, good luck on Black Friday tomorrow. It's not going to be well. So, see ya.